Hi there. Can you tell us what your name is and where you were born?
My name is Horst, H-O-R-S-T, Murky, and I was born in 1937 in Berlin, Germany. And Berlin was a city that was almost completely bombed. So we had a bomb going in the next house, which broke my eardrums, which required extensive care that we couldn't get in Berlin through all the bombing. So we were transported to East Prussia because that was the furthest away from all the bombing. But that was the closest again where the war came in. So at this time, I was with my mother, my aunt, and my brother. And the mode of transportation was by regular cars, railroad cars, not for people.
Oh.
Open cars and packed to the max. There was no room really to sit down. We were standing up like herring.
So did you get to bring anything with you?
Very little, only what you could wear.
Okay.
There was no personal belongings, and I don't know how we even got fed.
So how long was the train ride?
The train ride, as far as I remember, was probably 4 or 5 hours, and then we got assigned. And East Prussia and each German has a little district.
Okay.
And we were Thüringen is a district that belonged to East Germany. So we were assigned, we got off the train and we got assigned. It was a small community with 18 farmers.
Oh, okay. So where was your father?
My father was in prison camp.
He was in a prison camp.
Yeah,
How come?
he was drafted.
Okay.
And my father served in World War I and World War II as a soldier. He worked for the government, and when you talk about Nazis, he didn't have a choice. He had to join the party.
Right.
So when he came back, he had to be entnazifiziert. He had to prove that he didn't join the army by his own free will.
Okay.
So, and I saw my father the first time in 1945, just before 1944. And I never seen my father that I remembered until that day. He came in at Christmas Eve at 11 o'clock, stood there, and Mother introduced us and said, "This is your father." So as a child, you don't have a relationship because it's a strange man that comes in.
Right, right.
And my childhood was not a good childhood.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I may come back and ask you more questions.
Yes.
I have so many. The more you share, the more questions I have. Okay,
Yes.
so, and thank you for sharing, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, so so you were moved, your mother and a couple of aunts, you said?
One aunt and one brother.
And one brother. So you went to a farm. You didn't get to choose the farm that you
No.
were going to. And then what did you do at that farm? What kind of responsibilities did you have?
We were assigned a farmer.
Okay.
We were moved in a room about the pig stable with 4 people, no facilities, no bathroom, nothing. And it was a staircase, an open staircase with a rail. And I was very nosy. So I leaned over
Oh dear.
and I fell down, but I survived. So when my father came, he came to this community, and then we were luckily moved back to Berlin. That's where I was born.
Okay, so a couple of questions. So you were at the farm,
Yeah.
and what did you know about the war, and what types of things
I
did you
saw
observe?
as a child the most horrible things. when we moved there, first the Russian came, and we had to leave our homes. And then, fortunately, the American came, and they put us up in big tents. We had to leave all our homes, and they stayed on the farm, and they provided us food. The farmer was allowed to go in the morning and evening to take care of animals, cows, milk the cows, and feed whatever they had, chickens and horses. Horses were a rarity because most horses in Germany during World War I were drafted to the war zone. So the farmers had to plow their fields with cows or ox. So we were completely dependent on the farmers, guys, what they ever gave us. So I don't know how many refugees were in this, but we were assigned for a meal each day to a different farmer. And when you go and eat in Germany, they have a big bowl and they have potatoes in there, fried potatoes. And they didn't have plates. Everybody took their fingers and fed himself. And I always get up hungry because I was so slow. And then one of these days, a little light went off, and I said, if you want to get enough food, you have to speed up. And that's where I developed fast eating. And that probably up to this day, I'm a fast eater.
Right, because of
So,
what happened when
yeah.
you were a child. So you had mentioned that you would observe some other
Yeah,
things as well.
the most traumatic experience when you see how they march Jews, 10 abreast, probably 50 rows, and when the Jews couldn't walk anymore, SS was the one that transported these by foot. So if he couldn't walk, they just put him to the side, shoot him, and they had mass graves where they put 100 people in there, then put clay in there or lime in there, and then they closed them. And then these people, they're still human beings, they were put in the pasture. And the people from the community were not allowed to bring them food, only water. And, you know, they were very skinny because they marched, and I don't know why they marched them.
Was this towards the end of the war?
Yes, it was towards the end of the
I
war,
think
yeah.
they were clearing out the camps at that
Yes,
point in
yeah,
time
I
to
think
kind of
so.
hide what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so they took everybody on this mass exodus, trying to sort of walk them to death so that they could sort of hide the evidence.
Yes.
But you saw that as a little boy.
As a little boy,
and
that,
what went through your head when you saw that?
that there's so much injustice in life, because really, as a little boy, you don't know politics, you don't know religion, you don't care. They're all human beings, because you grew up as a child with a clear mind, so you're not prejudiced whatsoever. And when you see this, that leaves a big wound in you. That's very hard to overcome. And when they put him on the pasture, and they called that a rest spot, and there was, the pasture, say, was a half a square mile, and they had probably 500, 600, so they didn't even have room to lay down. They leaned against each other. No facilities to eat, no facilities to take care of their poop. I don't know how to call it.
Right. There was
And-
nothing.
And then they moved on. And when they left the field, it was all human
Remain. Yeah.
remain. So, and then at night you could hear bang, bang. And they tried to get away. And when they got out of this pasture, because I don't know, they were limited as
At that point.
to watch him, but when they saw somebody, they didn't just bring him back, they just shot him. And This is traumatic when you're a child. And it sticks whole life with you, but you have to overcome this, you know. And I was very fortunate that I got back to Berlin. Then I had my childhood, I had my apprenticeship program, and then at the age of 25, I was lucky to get a green card. One of my brother's friends sponsored me to become an immigrant. And then at age 25, I couldn't speak English. I got drafted in the army
Where did you immigrate
to Houston, Texas.
To Houston, Texas.
We had a dream when we got in New York that we would take a Greyhound bus and took a leisurely trip and learn the countryside. When we got to New York, we couldn't speak. We didn't know what a dime or a quarter or any
Right.
was. We couldn't even use a telephone. And there's an organization, a Christian organization, that is called Travelers Aid. They helped us to get the airline ticket. But when we arrived in Houston after midnight, the impact, when you saw the heat and the humidity, we were picked up in a VW bug and no air conditioning.
Oh dear.
So the whole beginning was super hard. My first job was driving a forklift and I couldn't speak English.
Well, did people treat you poorly because of what happened
No.
in the war, or did they understand?
No, Texas, at this time, Houston was a small community, 500,000, and they were the most gracious people. Everybody tried to help, and we always could communicate with paper. So when you learn a language, you have to write it down, and then you memorize it, and then you learn how to pronounce it. Because the pronunciation from German into English is completely different. The German talk with ich, dich, mich, with the CH with the throat.
Right.
And the American TH. And for German, this is the worst time to do it. But I was so lucky my whole life. And everybody was so helpful. I never met anybody that wasn't pro-German. And I worked as an orderly in the army for a major general. And he fought Rommel in Africa. And I had orders to go to Vietnam. And since my wife lived in Houston and I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, the provost marshal I was a driver for said, Specialist Murky, the only one who can take you off the orders is a major general, the division commander. And he interviewed me and offered me a job as an orderly. He asked me if I can clean house, if I can do small cooking. And we had a relationship that you cannot believe. For one instance, we're supposed to go to the desert for field training, and he had it scheduled for Friday. When he found out that my wife's birthday was Sunday, he rescheduled for little E4 his trip, and he said, don't show up before noon, because I had a 3-hour drive from Houston to Fort Polk, that you don't drive at night. And we had a relationship you can't believe. But all my life, everybody tried to help me. Everybody was friendly. I didn't meet anybody that didn't like us. So it's a dream story. And when you look, after 60 years in Houston, I'm financially better than most Americans. But again, hard work and being able to proceed, learn, and advance. And I always had an advantage because when I worked at an engineering company, I gave everything that I had and it got recognized. So I got promotions. And I always ended up in a top position in that department. I was a model builder, building refineries. And I traveled to Saudi Arabia, I traveled extensively in the United States because I was model supervisor and it was luxury for me to drive there and set up the models. So Then the computer came in and took my job away. So this time you're pretty old. And they put a computer in front of you. And it's mind-boggling. But you have to go on, you have to learn. And fortunately, I bought a computer with a 5 1/4 floppy because I did a bad mistake on a Bernoulli drive, which was the first disk drive. I don't know what year exactly. But I always looked ahead and tried to get education to do a job, to have a job.
So, to sum up, if you were to give 1 or 2 pieces of advice to young people about what you've learned in your life, what would those be?
Be honest, work hard, and give the best you have to give. And get educated, whatever you do, learn. For instance, when we came to the United States, we didn't have any money. So I took a lot of classes. I never had anybody working in my house. I did air conditioning, electrical, plumbing. I did everything by myself. And at that time we didn't have YouTube. So I had to go to school in the evenings. So I had 2 jobs because I like money and I wanted to succeed. So in the United States, the sky is the limit. You don't have it in any other country. If I would have stayed in Germany, I would have still have the same job that I had my apprenticeship program in. So land of opportunity means if you want something and you work hard and you give the best that you have and you're not lazy, you get recognized and then you can grow. So I'm very fortunate that I came to the United States. And for 40 years, I couldn't speak any German because when we came to the United States, we made a commitment to become integrated as an American. So we never had a job in Germany like we have in the United States. So then after 40 years, when we retired, our German was almost non-existent. But now we have a computer age. And before, a long distance call to Germany was a 2-party line. You had to wait until it was your turn. There's 7-hour time difference. My parents didn't have a phone. They had to go to phone booths to communicate with us. So when you look at the technology advances, it's tremendously.
Right.
So.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story, and a lot of people are going to see it and learn from you.
Okay.
It was my honor for you
Thank
to
you.
take your time with me today.
Yes,
Thank you.
enjoyed it.